Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jason Knight, and on each episode of this podcast, I'll be having inspiring conversations with passionate product people. I don't know about you, but when I find something good, I don't like to give it up. So if you like this episode, why not pop to the website, onenightinproduct.com, check out some of my other great episodes, sign up to the mailing list, or go to your favourite podcast app and subscribe so you'll never miss another episode again. And don't forget to share it with your friends so they can join in with the fun too. On tonight's episode, we go deep and meaningful into the philosophy of product design. What is product design? How does it differ from other types of design? Can any designer give it a go? How does it interface with product management, and very importantly, who should it report into? We also take a moment to remember the alpha and omega of design tools, the one and only Flash, RIP. For all this and much more, please join us on One Night in Product. So, my guest tonight is Udhaya Kumar Padmanabhan. Udhaya is an executive design leader, mentor and speaker working at Designit in Bangalore. Udhaya is someone with more LinkedIn recommendations than I can shake a stick at. He's been described as a visionary design guru who's both down-to-earth yet above the clouds. I'm hoping to meet him somewhere in the middle tonight and do my best to avoid altitude sickness. Hi Udhaya, how are you tonight?
Hey Jason, I'm doing good. Hope all is well with you as well.
Absolutely fantastic. I've got my oxygen canisters on hand. So first things first, you're working for Designit. Who are Designit and what problem do they solve?
Okay, so we are a Danish firm we'll be celebrating our 30th birthday this year. We started in Aarhus 30 years ago in a chocolate factory.
Willy Wonka?
Sort of Willy Wonka, yes. Highly regarded for, all kinds of design, industrial design, tangible design, and all of that stuff. But we are actually, in essence, we are known for strategic design and service design, and basically solving design problems at scale for businesses, society alike. Designit got acquired by Wipro in 2015. So that was the point in time where all the big companies were shopping for design agencies, and Wipro, ended up acquiring Designit. But yeah, we still operate as Designit, and basically our label is Designit, Wipro company. Yeah, that's what we are. We are currently about 1,000 plus people across 16 cities. We did acquire a few companies. Cooper was acquired by us in 2016. Most recently, we acquired Rational, and we have, an amalgamation of industrial designers, service designers, UX designers, researchers, event designers, architects, cognitive scientists, anthropologists, a very eclectic mix of 1,000 people of an organization that's about 190,000 people strong.
Wow.
And yeah, we are at the forefront of every little thing that Wipro, my parent organization, does.
Well, it sounds absolutely awesome and really wide-ranging as well. I'm sure you get to experience a wide array of different types of client and challenge, which sounds fantastic.
Absolutely.
But you're currently a Global Strategic Design Director there. So what does that mean specifically? How do you feel your days?
Okay. So we have a stack. We have different roles and responsibilities, stacked. So basically it begins with a managing director, and then there are design directors, and then you have leads and all of that. So Global Strategic Design Director. Okay, I'm part of the global team as well. My typical day at work comprises of many, many things. Though I'm a practicing designer, I also take care of design operations and design delivery. So I do get build on projects, I consult on projects, but at the same time, I also ensure everything that we promise the customer actually gets delivered. So there is a delivery engine that I need to take care of. And then sum total, I take care of all things DevOps, right? Be it hiring, the right people, enabling them to grow, enabling them to learn, get the right fitment, get the right designers on the right projects and all of that. So yeah, global because we are a global firm, and I also get to collaborate with, if not all of the studios, most of the studios at some point in time. And we are also since we are part of the leadership chain at the global level, I think that's a nomenclature that they've been using.
Oh, excellent. But you're based yourself in Bangalore, which is a town that I know mainly as being kind of a tech hub. I've never really heard of it as like a design hub.
Mm-hmm.
So is Bangalore a particular design hub, or are you like the biggest player there? Like, how's the design community there?
Yeah, interesting question. Yes, you can consider Bangalore as one of the primary design hubs back here in India. There are a few more cities also. Typically, like you said, anywhere you have a IT hub. Currently, as we speak, design as a function also has got its seat. So there are quite a few cities apart from Bangalore, but the design scene in Bangalore is definitely good. So 20 years ago, we were known for IT in terms of, helping on the services model and stuff like that. But today, as we speak, we are considered as the Silicon Valley of the East, the Silicon Valley of India or Asia. And basically, people just call it out, relative to a continent or a region and all of that. But I think Bangalore is the hub of all the biggies, be it a Google or be it a Facebook or be it a Mercedes-Benz, or we are the extended arms of all critical aspects that happen on the home front for all of these giants. So we have moved beyond services. In fact, companies right from semiconductors to electric vehicles, you name it, we are a hotbed. So we have transcended ourselves from just a services firm to actually building cool stuff here. The after effect of that is a lot of design functions and design activities also get localized. So in the last 10 years, there's been a significant thrust in the kind of design that evolves out of Bangalore. There are products actually being completely built out of Bangalore. I'm talking about tangible products. Then there are a lot of software products and services and platforms that actually get built out of Bangalore and, is being served on a platter to the whole world. So it is thriving. There's a huge supply demand issue, as with most of these thriving startup/tech cities across the globe. I think there's an immense amount of demand for sure, but the supply could be better. And that's something that most of the cities actually juggle with, be it Tokyo, be it Berlin, or be it San Francisco. But yeah, back in India, it's definitely, it could be better. But Bangalore does have a huge design crowd.
But how did you get into design? Because your background is, from what I understand, is around computer science, maths, statistics. I think that was what you did at university.
Right.
That makes me think you should be like a data scientist or something. Right? How did you get into design?
Yeah, I've told this in the past as well, so I'll try to be very crisp and succinct, but at the same time, as expansive as possible for people who have never heard me or probably hearing me for the first time. I basically was really good at computer science and maths and stats. I trained to be a quant 20 years, even before Time actually made the quant as person of the year. So I keep joking that I had foresight that I did it 20 years ahead of time. I did not see myself as pursuing a career writing code, not because I hated it or anything. I was really good at it. I worked on a bunch of real live projects during my final year, which was like very, very rare for my generation. I helped one of the largest, or probably the largest, insurance firms in India to automate their gratuity function. This was written in COBOL, by the way, and trust me, it still runs. So yeah, but I never thought that probably I'll write code for the rest of my life for whatever reasons. I mean, maybe it was a gut feel, or maybe I was just building my excuses or what. But I thought I just don't want to do it. And I got exposed to art at a very young age, and I think art translated into design. And then there was no looking back. I think I got my first computer when I was 13 and a half or 14. Green screen, and definitely yes. So I think I got hooked to desktop publishing, and MS Paint and all of that, and I'm happy. So yes, so I didn't want to write code probably, and the only other option was okay, you do what you're good at. And I got into the creative side of things and slowly climbed my way up. I did everything that you could think of, right from desktop publishing to multimedia to videos to ad films to print and new media, and yeah.
I'm assuming there's some Flash in there at some point as well.
Oh yeah. During my freelancing days and moonlighting days, I think I used to make 10x the money my employer used to pay, and it was all about Flash intros. I mean, I have juiced. I'm probably one of those guys who's juiced Flash to the max. So yeah.
R.I.P. Flash.
Yes.
Fondly remembered.
Yeah.
So, talking about design then. So, recently you gave a talk about demystifying the difference between product management and product design.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, I don't want you to rehash the whole talk again, but it would be interesting because that's obviously something that comes up a fair amount. And you don't have to go too far, for example, to see job specs out there that conflate the two. Obviously, you've also got the UX designer in there as well as like a third arm of that. Some people would say that UX designers are the same as product designers. Some people will say that they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
Help me demystify this a little bit. So where do the boundaries sit as far as you're concerned?
Great. I think there were two interesting questions in your question, so I'll take it in sequence.
I'm really bad at that.
No. I think it'll help people who are listening, get a simplified rendition of what it is as we speak. So let me deconstruct product design and UX design. Within the design land, there's this huge fight between I'm a product designer and I work for a product company and you're just a UI UX designer and whatnot, right? So fundamentally, I think this whole label of product design evolved, in the 40s and 50s when industrial design became a thing. People were building tangible things and they did industrial design. Probably they did mechanical engineering and industrial design and they started working with tangible stuff, right? I think as we technology evolved, a lot of those tangible offerings and solutions actually got digitized. Many things. Simple, case in point, snail mail versus email. So back in the day when there was no email, we all know, right? Postcards and letters were printed, envelopes were printed, and those were printed, using probably a Gutenberg press or a Heidelberg machine. And it was designed, right? Somebody who was designed. Same as with currency, right? While we still deal with banknotes and coins and all of that stuff, a lot of people transact with air today, right? Digital cash. So I think the the construct of product design itself seeped through the digital world, and then the labels got stuck, right? I work for Adobe and I'm a product designer. I'm part of the Creative Cloud team and I work extensively on Illustrator. Fair point. I mean, semantics. But yeah, that's where the fight is. That's where it sometimes gets to bloodbath that, you have to come from product company to fit into a product company. I have unbelievable stories that I can think of. Some of the best designers not making it into another company because the hiring panel felt that this person comes from a different world and vice versa. So I think the evolution of tangible to intangible, segments of certain design is at fault, or probably is what catalyzed this disparity between practitioners thinking that A is B and B is A. Having got that out of the way, I think product management and product design are integral parts of a larger superset, right? So people just get, carried away by, the product management guy has more ownership because he or she is construed as the mini CEO of the product. And then designers get, as it is, designers, we are very touchy-feely people. Yeah, I think it is basically the push-pull between being analytical and emotional. Management is always being very, very analytical, rigorous, evaluative, and quantitative, and 600 other things that we all know. Any MBA class would teach that. On the other side, we are diametrically opposite to that spectrum, right? We talk about intuitiveness, we talk about outside in, we talk about being generative and outcome based versus output based and all that. A lot of these ambiguities are because these turf wars, for want of a better word, is because each person is speaking the same thing from their lens. So even I was there on both valleys, and I have fought on both sides also. Age sobers you down, and then you reflect back and basically you're talking the same thing. That is where I think product management as a function also is fusing so much. So you have some very premier niche universities or schools or organizations actually wanting to help people learn management plus design under the same construct. Early days though, but I think that will become a critical part of the academia world also. So one advantage I see there is people from the get-go during their formative academic years are at least trained to basically appreciate the fact that both are part and parcel of the same box, whether it's white box or black box, and people could actually cut across both and figure out whether they want to do management or whether they want to do design. And the industry is peppered. I'm sure you also know it. The industry is peppered with a lot of stories where product management guys shifted to design and vice versa. And I've been lucky to work on both sides, but I think I got back to design because we are a full-blown design agency. We also help customers with product management side of things, but we don't become product managers. But I think the industry is at fault, but a lot of people that I know of are actually trying to ease out these apprehension about I am big and you're big and all of that. But I think probably it'll take a few more years where these become anecdotal, and probably the product management professionals and the product design professionals of the later years would actually laugh at this.
So, one interesting thing that I thought of while you were going through the challenges of people that didn't get hired, for example, based on being maybe from the wrong domain or from the wrong background in design.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually something that I've reflected on from a product management perspective, because there's this whole argument about whether you need to, for example, be a domain expert in the type of product or the industry that the type of product that you work on exists in. So, for example, do you need to be a fintech product manager to work in another fintech company, or do you just need to be a general product management expert? And that's that. There are strong opinions on both sides of that argument, but it really sort of drifted into my mind when you were talking about, for example, do you need to be a certain type of designer to be a product designer? Or do you think that there are certain design principles that, given obviously the sufficient time for onboarding and upskilling in the product that you're working on, do you think that any designer could effectively do that? Or is it a very specific set of skills?
Yeah, great question again. I think this whole notion of I'm a fintech company and I would rather hire a person with similar experiences is good. It's an idealistic situation, but in today's day and age, I think that actually has negative ramifications, so much so it has become an intense debate in the hiring circles, right?
Mm-hmm.
My theory, after having spent like a quarter of a century, is this: I think this is fundamentally a problem because of the similarity bias that we bring in as recruiters, as people who hire these guys, because we want to de-risk anything from the get-go. If I have climbed the career ladder doing certain things, and that becomes my template, that becomes my framework, and this, the candidate that signals that the most actually gets the job more often than not. It's not about them coming from Google or Facebook or having built and sold companies or anything. At that point in time, it's a reflection of hardcore similarity bias at play, right? I would rather hire somebody who's exactly like me, and that's that. And in organizations are just abstract constructs, right? It is the people that makes the firm. Larger organizations means larger difficulties in exactly figuring out what was the thought process in hiring people. So I keep telling people that research has told that have a common standardized set of questions that will remove similarity bias. A lot of research actually has shown that, but for some reasons unknown to me and a lot of people, it's still not become mainstream. Now, coming back to this whole question of what does it take for designers to actually become product designers, I think all designers, whether they are UI UX guys or UI guys, if they really want to get into product design, they can, and they should try it at least once in their life. I think the framework is very simple. Whether you like it or not, you need to park the fact that you're very creative. You can remove abstractness and put a shape to it, put a layer to it. All of that is great, but the minute you get into products, the minute you get into platforms and services, whether you like it or not, two important things. You need to be analytical. The minute when you ask people to be analytical, a lot of creative people are like, I'm not analytical. Yeah. So I think product is hard stuff, right? Product is really hard stuff because, like I said in one of my previous talks also, it may mean, the existence or the demise of a company in question. So that is one thing. And there's an element of curiosity. There's an element of, front loading understanding, without which you can't solve for a problem, or a domain without understanding it. Here is where there's a huge delta between traffic that comes from agencies like ours, because we get to work on a very, very, diverse set of problem statements, right? In the morning, we may be talking to an oil and gas company. In the afternoon, we may be talking to a retailer. And in the evening, we may wrap up a call with a big pharma company. But whereas when you go to the product world, it gets very verticalized. It gets very siloed, right? You may be working for a product, platform or a suite for the last 10 years. So fatigue sets in. So a lot of guys at that point in time want to, try the agency side of things. And a lot of agency guys actually want to, jump into the product side of things. And there's always this misnomer that product companies pay you better than agencies. It might be partially true, but I think it works in both ways. So coming back to what does it take for any designer to be a product designer, the first and foremost thing is they need to think that product design is just a label. You will get to work on something that's already in existence, which impacts the P&L of an organization, or you might be part of a startup that wants to build a product or a platform that's going to, be a game changer. There are certain nuances that you need to understand. And yeah, metrics, outcomes, you need to signal your design decisions. The madman stories and the agency stories are also at fault, right? Back in the day, I'm not a creative guy. I come to you, you're the agency. I sign a 5 million or a 50 million annual contract, and you are my creative guy. You create all these fancy ads and you could create all of this stuff, and you basically pitch and sell it. But I think some designers are still living in that world. I will do what I do and don't question me. That won't work in today's day and age, right? So they have to be very, very conducive to be collaborative. They need to be very, very conducive to the fact that if they dream of working for a product company, they have to work with a disparate team that comprises of tech, engineering, marketing, and sales, and all of that. Because more often than not, when you work in agencies, you are actually completely sequestered from all of this. The brief comes to you. The creative guys just sit and figure out what it is, and then you probably conceptualize, you wireframe it, you prototype it, you pitch it back, and all of that. Whereas in a product company, you're a mishmash of too many people, too many moving parts, and that can also become a kind of a barrier to some designers, if not all designers. Speaking for India, I think in India there's always this taken for granted feeling, if you will, that product companies pay you better than services companies and studios. To an extent, it is true. So many people just blindly want to get into product companies, without doing their homework.
And that's really interesting. And actually, one thing that I remember from an interview I did for this podcast many months ago now with another UX lead was how he almost felt that UX design, product design has all become very subordinate to the product manager and not kind of really in charge of the design on its own. And I think that touches on what you just said as well. Like, it's a collaboration. It's not just that someone's going to take away an idea and come up with a wonderful looking design and information architecture and everything like that and come back and present it to a team who are then going to build it. It's more of it should be more of a collaboration so that everyone's on the same page throughout. And I've also seen other people, maybe more from the engineering side and some of the more kind of high level thinkers about designing processes and stuff like this, saying that, of course, 100% you need to have your UX team, for example. Let's just call it UX for now. Your UX team in the same discussions as your developers, potentially with clients, as in the users of the software, to make sure that everything holds together and that you're not just throwing the ball backwards and forwards over a wall. And it sounds like what you say that you would agree with that.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's what makes and breaks any product management function in any organization. You either are glued together, you gel well, and the ways of working actually enforces that. It's not that the product manager talks to the customer or the researchers and then comes back and gives his or her rendition to the design team. Design is not treated as a ancillary function within the product management shop. These are the companies that strive and thrive. And the rest of the companies, there's always this element of feeling, this feeling of being left out. I'm just being treated as the design guy, the VD guy. And I think that's where the forest fire is.
But how easy is it then, obviously, thinking of some of the experience that you've had in the various companies you've worked with in your career? I'm assuming that there have been times where you've taken on a project that someone, or a product that someone started already, that there's already some kind of design for, or worse still, that there was never a design for, but it kind of just progressed anyway. How easy is it for you and for your team to, for want of a better phrase, unmake the porridge and actually make it so that you can get that design back on track? I mean, is there a point where you just look at it and go, oh my, there's just no way you can get that and you basically have to start from scratch? Or is it generally quite easy to apply good design principles to something and try and just nudge it back in the right direction?
Awesome. This branches out into two distinct tracks.
I keep doing that.
I know. Commendable. You're doing a commendable, job at it. So if you have established software or services or platform that's been in the market, okay, and it's very functional. You have paying customers, and you have a product backlog, and you're, so in such situations, you cannot do a complete pivot, right? You have to make quick fixes. You need to get some common sense fixes to the existing platforms or products or whatever your company is offering. But in parallel, run a larger exercise to basically unveil the next big thing or the revised thing is what works. I will give an example, of many examples. I'll give a live example of a multi-billion dollar company of which I was part of. And on the other side, there are startups, or there are early stage companies which has some traction, which has raised some capital, or basically they're trying to move to the next levels. There, it's that much easier to basically pause and then completely pivot. Now the problem would be you will have shorter time cycles because you're a startup. You don't have a P and you don't have a deal pipeline. You don't have a subscription base. You don't have visibility of money coming in month on month. So people do it incrementally, but for established companies, typically the F100, the F500, the FTSE 150, and all of that, there it becomes a little harder, simply because you're trying to change, you're trying to course correct an oil tanker and not a speedboat. And no matter what you want to do, it takes its own sweet time to basically change position. So I can give a lot of war stories, but I'll give an example each from my own personal life on both the use cases. One of them was, a large enterprise wanting to change its design. I got hired by a company called MSC Software. So I'm not sure if you're aware of it, and probably a significant amount of audience also may not be aware of it. So MSC Software basically has its roots apparently in, I think it's in NASA. 1930s, and yeah, basically we were a simulation company. We build software and platforms that helps companies to simulate and emulate reality before they become products. And our elevator pitch was like fascinating, right? And what do you guys do? So we were like, we don't know what we did, but we were the guys who put the first man on the moon. And it is actually the fact. I joined this company as their global head of UI and UX. By then, the company was like about 25, 30 years into the product suite that I'm talking about. Though they were a 60-year-old company by the time I joined them. We had multiple platforms that help computer aided simulation, computer aided engineering and simulation and all of that, right? And yeah, 30,000 of us, of which 25,000 were quants and PhDs in physics and mechanical engineering and whatnot. And I enter the room, and I'm basically a hardcore design guy. What helped was basically you need to demonstrate value proposition to your stakeholders. The minute you enter in such situation, basically it's one to many. There'll be a lot of guys advertently or inadvertently waiting for your neck. Not because they hate you or anything, but they feel the sense of discomfort that somebody is going to take their baby away. And we are all humans, and blame evolution. So the first thing is you need to break that misconception. You need to demonstrate quick values. And what has helped for me is basically, rather than going and preaching to the choir, you basically step back and hear them out. There will be initial resistances. People who try all kinds of tricks in their bag, right? I'm very busy. I'm in a conference and all of that. That's the point in time where you make the C-suite responsible for that. Hey, I'm willing to talk to these guys and hear them out, but you need to facilitate that. I think, as soon as I got hired, I moved, I had to go to LA. I sat with the who's who of the organization. I was part of the exec management as well. So that opened doorways, spoke to these guys. And end of the day, I keep telling designers, hey, we are in the relationship business. Forget your Photoshop and tool and this and that. We are in the relationship business. I think for me, it worked. We actually took one sliver of a product that was selling like hotcakes. Basically, we only had one competitor, which was basically Dassault Systems, right? We went and said, let's take this sliver, let's run a pilot, let's demonstrate value to ourselves, our sales folks, and our existing install base of probably more than 100,000 customers, paying customers. And we ran a quick pilot. We time boxed it. We ran it in 90 days. And then voila, later, whatever you say becomes magic. And with great power comes great responsibility. That's when you need to be very careful. But yeah, I think that helped on the enterprise. In the startup, yes, I was again part of a fantastic startup into the data visualization space. And I actually ran 5 different product lines and a multi-million-dollar consulting business in parallel. So one of the things that we kept noticing is we had about 30,000 paying customers. We had about 500,000 developer, strong developer community. And we had customers in, about 190 odd countries, including Greenland. So there was somebody who actually bought a license in Greenland as well. So, classic story, they wanted us to consider the fact that, why don't you guys build something around SharePoint? So this is 2011, 2012, where SharePoint was like, a big thing. It's still a big thing now. And we were like, should we pivot, shouldn't we pivot, and all of that. But because it was more of a, push from the client base, we actually stepped aside. We put a quick SWAT team in place. We actually built a plugin that could actually bring real cool data visualization within the construct of SharePoint, and the rest is history. Actually, we made that the best data visualization component available for SharePoint at that point in time, and happy ending, the company got acquired. So
Yes.
yes, yeah. So yeah, I think it is all about modulating the ask versus the task, and then breaking ice with the people. Because if you don't get into the relationship game, I may sound like a philosopher, or I may sound like I'm more into do's and don'ts 101, but no, that's exactly how it unfolds. Otherwise, you will be at loggerheads about what do you know? You're just a design guy. I'm the nuclear scientist. I built this algorithm which will emulate and simulate probably a rocket. And yeah, I mean, in MSc, we were responsible for crash tests. We were responsible for satellites. We were responsible for consumer goods. And yeah, I mean, failure was not an option. So yeah.
No, I mean, that's really interesting. And I think the philosophy thing is actually really valid. You need to think about these things on a higher level, and you need to think about practices and principles. So I'm definitely never going to criticize anyone for that. But one thing that you also said is that you like to give form to the formless.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've worked in the past on some projects around authentication and security. So obviously stuff that doesn't necessarily have an amazing design body of work around it necessarily. And in my day job, I work very much with APIs and providing APIs to clients. And I know how hard it can be to get design thinking into that kind of product because, of course, it doesn't really have an interface, or not a visual one anyway. But I'm starting to really believe and advocate for having proper design principles brought into things like this so that the products, even without an actual graphical interface, still have some level of journey built into them. Now, is that something that you believe should be or could be applied to basically anything? Or do you think that there are some things which design just really can't touch or can't make too much of an impact on?
Oh, okay. I completely spot on, and really, kudos for asking this question. I believe in the former. There is nothing. I may be biased because I've made a living, and a very good living at that one. I won't complain, having been a practicing designer for 25 years. But I'm parking the bias aside. I think first of all, the definition of design to me is, if you are in the business of solving any business problem, societal problem, or any kind of problem, you are actually a designer. Design is just not the interface or the color or the layout and the composition and all of that we designers actually think is designed, right? Number one. Number two, yes, like you said, the world is moving to, so many different things. For example, APIs in question. Can somebody look at an API? Probably the guy who writes code and then basically, converts that into an API, and maybe another developer who just gets the APIs exposed. And then the outcome of that API, all the song and dance might, translate into screens or on a mobile phone or a desktop or a web platform and all of that, right? So yes, this is a true blue example of an intangible that also can follow design principles, right? And the secret is out there. It's just that people can't see it, just like how we are blinded to our own nose, right? Evolution. It is a process. And process reimagination and process redesign is of utmost importance to anything that is probably in existence today. If you really step aside and look at it, there is a huge ecosystem of some magic happening, and you could actually distill that into a process. Yes, some of them are still world secrets. For case in point, alchemy. People know that there are scrolls written about how to convert anything into gold, but yeah, maybe in due course of time, people will crack it. But for the more mundane things like software, right? There are ways and means in which you should look at it as a problem that needs to be solved, and basically you look at adjacencies, right? You don't stick to the rote of saying that, okay, because I'm using React, because I'm using Node, because I'm using probably Java, I have to do this. No, there is no more, the construct of I have to doesn't exist anymore. This is where, if you recall, I said designers have to be slightly analytical. This is where that analytical bent of mind kicks in. You need to be curious about figuring out why certain things are working the way they're working, and probably look at why nots. One of the significant things is we always focus on why. We ask a lot of questions and then we don't come back and tell people why not. Why can't you consider an apple instead of a banana, if you will, right? I think a lot of interesting stuff actually is happening on that domain, but I think those designers who are actually sitting at the cusp of solving such problems are very far and few. Interestingly, because I am part of a super large and a super successful company like Wipro, I get to actually get a ringside view of certain things. And as I speak, we are big time into this whole construct called developer productivity. I don't know if you've heard about this or not, but I'm sure you would have. So this is a big thing, right? The whole world is becoming like a technology shop. Every company has to be, a technology company and all of that. There is this huge kind of a quasi revolution that's happening where, hey, are our engineering teams, are our developers getting a great developer experience? Yes, we started with user experience, we moved to consumer experience and customer experience, and then there is whole thing about employee experience. And developer experience in tech firms is basically a subset of employee experience, right? Are we getting the right developers to do the right thing at whatever career stages that they are in, and how do we empower them to be the best at what they do? Right? Very, very profound question, like, solving the world hunger problem. But if you, at the heart of it, if you look at it, what does it take for a developer to be productive? First and foremost thing, right? What is productivity from a developer's lens? You actually have to define that. You will have to get people to align to that. Then you will have to institutionalize that. And then that becomes the norm. So as I speak, we are actually heavily invested in that, and we are doing a lot of wonderful stuff. There, 90% of the times, there is no interface and there is nothing. It is only, there is a process that we want to try, and then we bring in tooling, we bring in communication, we bring in a lot of other things to basically, set that snowball in motion so that as it goes downward, it basically gains more mass and more volume. And then finally it becomes the thing, right? So you're right. Not everything that people see, touch, feel should be construed as a designer's job. This is the next big thing for designers, actually, because I keep telling people to, like a doomsday soothsayer, if you will, that maybe in the next 3 years, 4 years, design, UI, UX design as we know may not even exist, right? We are going back to primitives. We are going back to gestures, and we are going back to voice. And voice is going to be, super, super important as we move forward, right? And then in parallel, you have AI and ML and all of that actually taking over. And there are already tools that actually can design a fantastic website in half the time that a designer probably could even, think and whiteboard. We are not going to lose our jobs. I also tell that to people. Let the machine do what it is best. Bring in the, speed and efficacies. You worry about the creativity and problem solving is what I tell people. So yeah, let me pause. Super excited with that question. So I went on and on, but yes, a lot of things. The deceptiveness about design is not everything can be seen, but there's someone somewhere who sat through it, thought through it, and actually, came up with the best algorithm, came up with the best process flow that actually translates a need or a goal or an objective into fulfillment. So that is the very big thing, and it's a blue sky. Not many designers are actually, working on it or even know about it. The closest they come to is, they talk about systems thinking because they heard about systems thinking and they read the Meadows, they picked the Meadows book, and then that's that, but nobody applies it.
Yeah, it does really feel, as you say, like it's almost like going to be a confluence of different disciplines all focusing on the product design or the UX design of the future, because like you say, it's going to take so many different inputs and you need to be able to synthesize and pull those. And again, I always just bring it back to this whole idea of there's a journey that you go on, and what or how you interact with that journey, that's the design, right? And
absolutely,
I guess it's just it'll be really interesting to see where that goes, as you say, as we start to get more things like augmented reality, and if they ever manage to get Google Glasses sorted out and stuff like that, just all these different things. And it still requires a real strong design mindset, but design more from a designing how people are going to do stuff versus the specifics of nice visual design or whatever.
Absolutely.
Where do you think product design should report into? Do you think it should be into like a chief experience officer, a chief product officer? Does it matter at all? What are your thoughts on that?
I think I'm fine if the middle, the middle abbreviation is either a P or a X. The only, both of them bring their own advantages and disadvantages. I think there are a lot of companies that are actually run by designers, right? Case in point, Airbnb. You won't get a better example than that, right? I mean, designers basically became what they have become. But very controversial question, but I'll still give my 2 cents or 2 cents or 2 pennies on this. The chief product officer or the chief of experience officer interoperably can actually own, run, and be responsible for all the product management functions of any organization, subject to the fact that they are thoroughly grounded in both the domains. Having said that, you don't expect this person to actually be a practicing designer at some point in time, or a full-blown product manager. I'm sure you can find such people, a few people on the planet, given that we are like 7.5 billion and counting, but it's very rare, right? But the thing is not about CPO versus CXO, right? The thing is about the P and the X actually realizing that, hey, we are both, two sides of the same coin. This is what I keep telling over and over again. Fuse the analytic bent of mind with a creative bent of mind and all of that. So to answer, maybe a designer, a designer who's always been a great designer who has been exposed to the ways and means of how product management works and what does it take, what does it take, and all of that, may actually climb up the ladder and actually become a CPO for all you know, right? In my life, I never had the C-suite attributed to me during my product management days, but I was way up the VP and the EVP and the SVP layers, right? I didn't even know what product management was. I was just pushed into this department by my CEO. He basically said, I think this is what you need to do. And I still remember the only thing I had asked him. I mean, that was my naiveness when I was all of 24, 25. Basically, this was in Silicon Valley. So he says, hey, I'm planning to move you to product management. It'll be a great thing for you. And guess what my response was? Okay, I don't know whatever it means, but what kind of a hike am I giving? What is my increment? and yeah, he did promise me some number, and he kept his side of the bargain, to be honest. And the rest was history. I got fascinated with her, intersection of marketing and sales and engineering and all of that stuff, right? So I think CPO or CXO as a label is fine. Who needs to own is somebody who understands both. But in today, as we speak, I can guarantee 90% of chief product officers for all the swan songs that they talk about. Design is very close to my heart. I know the value of design and all that. My personal experience, it is rote. I'm not telling all the CPOs, disclaimer, I don't want all the CPOs to chase me. but the ground reality is they have different goals and objectives on a daily basis. And some of them genuinely are curious about design. Most of them actually call it out probably because that is part of their organization anyways. On the flip side to it, chief experience officers basically take X very literally, right? They're very passionate about it. I want to change the organizational experience. I want to change culture. And I keep telling people, you can't change culture. You can only influence a change in culture, right? So who needs to own it? I am okay if still, I'm still okay if the CPO's office is CPOs because it's a very, grounded construct. But the chief product officer needs to take sides on both sides, right? You cannot think about an MBA plus quant plus qual plus a couple of releases under the belt should basically come and dictate terms to the designers. At the same time, designers should not be rebellious and think that okay, no matter what you do, what people are going to look at, what they're going to touch and feel and experience is mine. I'm not going to deliver, right? So that becomes a bloodbath. It's whoever needs to get into the surgical table needs to understand the entire physiology. That would be my analogy. I mean, I shouldn't say that I'm probably a thoracic surgeon and that's that. Maybe someone else can come and take care of something else. No, that doesn't work. But that will take at least a couple of generations of chief product officers or chief experience officers to basically come to a pact, a truce. But those days are on the horizon. It's not going to take 50, 60 years for sure.
So where can people catch up with you after this if they like what they've heard and want to talk a bit more about product design or any of the other stuff that you've mentioned today?
LinkedIn. So yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the only place that I check in at least once a day. And I would definitely recommend people to reach out to me On LinkedIn, my handle is very simple. Go to LinkedIn and just search for UX first. That's U for umbrella, X for Xerox, FIRST, and you'll find me.
I will link it in, so to speak, into the show notes, and obviously we're looking forward to your first TikTok as well. So
awesome.
Well, that's been a really fantastic chat. Really interesting to talk about some of your experience and opinions about the wonderful world of design. Hopefully we can stay in touch and catch up on that more in the future. But as for now, thanks for taking the time.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me here. And yes, we would be in touch, and we'll definitely have many banters about product and design and all of the things, I'm sure.
Thanks for listening. I hope you found the episode interesting and insightful. If you did, again, I can only encourage you to share with your friends, sign up on the website, onenightinproduct.com, or subscribe on your favourite podcast app and check out some of my other inspiring conversations with passionate product people. I'll be back soon, but as for now, thanks and good night.